Good morning, fellow shapers. They say that you live and learn. Not always the case. So not only did I forget the cup again, I forgot my zebra hanging pot and all of my cooking equipment. Basically, they were soaking in a hot water with washing up liquid, and I just dashed out the door without really thinking much about that. So, as always, it seems like I've got to find solutions to problems that probably shouldn't exist in the first place because, stupidity. So, thankfully, I brought some of these with me, which you might know as peri flavour, which is a little bit spicy. And my golden rule is get here, have a cup of tea or coffee, and then crack on. This time round, I've had to eat 6 cold peri sausages to get this tin of brine water so I can have some sort of hot drink with a slight peri kick to it, probably. But it's all sent to try us. Sometimes we send things to ourselves to try us, though, which is not so good. Anyway, enough about that. My axe handle broke. My trusty piece of ash, which I was very fond of. It all started from me overstriking the wood and hitting here a lot. Done a lot of damage doing that straight away. So then I thought, well, maybe a stitch in time might save 9. And I reinforced it a little bit with a metal plate at the front, but it just ended up snapping straight off. So stitch in time didn't save 9. Maybe I should have done something about it earlier. So we've gone with the polymorph option just because I need it quick. I will look out for another solid piece of ash, but this is damn sight easier to make than the handle, trying to get the handle through here and then bang wedges in, and this is much stronger, I think, than any piece of ash is. You can't bend it in any way. It is solidly, it might not look a bit, well, it's smaller handle. I wanted it a little bit more portable, so just gonna have to see how I get on with it. A little bit of rubber down here because this is quite slippery, and that's just coloured thermoplastic at the bottom and thermoplastic sheath, and yeah, it'll be better than not having an axe, but I don't know how good it will be, so give it a go. So I'm going to carry on, have my cup of tea, and move on to other things, because we've actually got a little bit of sunlight creeping through these trees at the moment from my birchwood. And you know what they say, make hay while the sun shines. Or, well, make a cup of coffee while the sun shines first. Then we'll get on with the hay stuff. Oh. Peri coffee. If that don't wake you up, I don't think anything will. Certainly gonna wake up my stomach, I think. Anyway, that's another story. So now I'm in a predicament. I mean, this is all fair enough. Thankfully, the food I've brought is homemade, put into a takeaway tray, tin foil tray. so that isn't a problem. But I want my birch sap for the day, my RDA, because I don't get many vitamins, if I'm honest, as you can probably tell. I eat a lot of crap, and that birch sap, I actually noticed a difference with that, so I would like to take advantage of it while I can. Stay tuned for my method on how to do that. I'm now going to do it shortly. I was thinking what I'm going to have to do is just go without coffee for 4 hours. Ooh, haven't really thought this through. And collect my birch sap. This isn't a hanging pot, so I'm going to have to put a hole through the top here. It's big enough for the branch to pop onto the branch, and then hopefully that will do the job. Another solution to a problem that shouldn't really exist. Well, there we go. It's all fun and games. Like so. So now, of course, you know what's going to happen later, don't you? I'm only going to drink this at night when I'm a little bit tired or something. That's going to go. You got to laugh, otherwise, you know. So here we have a well-established birch. It's probably at least 50 years old, and it should be able to take, because there's a lot of growth on it, it should be able to take a loss of a branch. So what we're going to do here, or what I've done here, is I've weighed this branch down with a log, just so that I can get this branch to angle down a little bit. I've popped I've cut an angle in this branch so it creates a tip, and also that's just after a node, which is a twig, another little branch. So just after the branch, make a sliced cut, angular, coming to a point, and pop it on. Then once that's finished with, you could use surgical dressing tape or wound dressing tape. If you haven't got that in your first aid kit, you could put a bit of Germaline on it. You could wrap something up around it, some sort of tape, as long as it sticks to it, does the job. But you do need to seal up that wound, because that will bleed for at least a day, maybe 2, left untapped. But worst case scenario is that instead of doing damage to the whole tree like you ordinarily would by putting a hole in it, all that's going to happen is this branch is going to just basically die down to here, right down to the trunk, and create a knot in the tree eventually. And that is the damage. So yeah, you can also use Scots pine resin. It sticks to it quite well, and seals up the wound, and also has got antibacterial properties in itself. But then so has this tree. It's pretty pest resilient, so you haven't got to worry about that too much. But it's just the actual damage of the tree itself. By putting a big hole in it, you're going to cause a lot of damage on the inside that you don't necessarily see, but will affect it. So I'll come back in a few hours, because I'm going to need a cup of tea for sure, and that's my only pot, my everything pot. That wasn't the plan, but then, you know, when is it? So we're the first week of March at the moment. They always say about the second week of March to collect all water, but I've found that's out of season nowadays, and you can actually gather it a couple of weeks earlier than that. So beginning of March even. Gathering your birch sap, because everything is slightly out nowadays. The April showers seem to come in March. Everything's just stepped forward a little bit. Yeah, I can see why witches is a bit of a female thing, which I see potential problems for the wizards. But yeah, it is what it is. It's very effective. Very effective. Filming this little channel, small ponds that's starting to happen. There's all this crap. Sure, that has come up me. So you don't have to just be a wizard or witch or anything, and I very much doubt this is as good as your Nimbus 2000 or Firebolt, whatever it may be, whatever takes your fancy. But obviously you're going to lose a few pieces, so just give it a little bit more of a tighten on there and it's good to go. Yeah, so now I've got to sort my bedding out and clear the tent out a little bit and give it a blooming good clean out, just to stop any risk of any potential problems from being friendly with my visitors. Sounds a bit weird. Anyway, another use for the birch. Kind of want to take it home. Especially if I could fly. I mean, Jesus, that'd save me a long walk, that's for sure. So the axe has been a success. I put it to good use yesterday, and as I expected, this is well up for the job. When you put it in and then lever it, it bends a little. It's not like wood, say, where it doesn't bend, but this does have a little bend. That's not a problem, that's not an issue, because this is thick enough to take a little bit of a bend and it'll spring back into shape again. So really happy with that, and I might actually keep it like that, whereas ordinarily I'd replace it with an ash, a piece of ash handle like what was on it before. But my axe skills are not very good, and I keep overstriking the wood and hitting it there. And you know, if I get any damage there, I can just heat it up again and put it back into shape. So yeah, and it's a little bit smaller, which wasn't a problem. I thought that might be, but no. It's great for just doing that with little chops. If you come across anything big, little chop, big lump seems to be the best way forward for me anyway. It's not a very good axe, it was a very cheap axe to start with. There's a lot of history about this thing in my playlists, in my previous videos. It's been a bit of a journey, But at the end of the day it was £10, and it has chopped a lot of wood, so maybe not as well as some other axes would, but yeah. So I made my hazel pole tent. There was lots of living bits of it left. The hazel pole tent looks like it's actually taken root with a couple of its branches, which would be a bonus to leave a bit hazel after I've camped there. But just in case, I do this quite often. Just to let them get a bit of air, because it can get a bit stuffy inside these things. And as you can see, they're coming into bud, which is bang on time. They will soon become leaves, hopefully, as long as they don't touch the sides of this thing too much, which looks like they are getting a little bit of damage. But there is about 10 there, 10 cuttings, which were put into a rooting compound of powder, white powder. You can get gels and all kinds of different ones, but I just like the old powder, old school. And it just gives them a little head start. You don't need it to even really do it. Just make a point on the end, pop it in the ground, and nothing else has got a chance of living. And that's with most trees and plants and things that you come across. Such a simple way to cover your tracks. I mean, I've used, I don't know, a dozen bits of living hazel this year, or last year, about a dozen bits. So I'm trying to pay that back, although it doesn't need it, because the hazel will grow happy. It'll be all the better for me taking it out in many ways. It gives a lot more room for new growth. But I still like to leave more than what I take. I know that's not really the best of expressions, but that's the way it is. If I know that they want more hazel in this area. The plantation that was done up to 10 years ago, they tried to plant lots of hazel in this area, also ash and a few different species of birch, which I'm trying to identify. So yeah, I'm just copying whatever they've tried to do. I mean, they've left these things everywhere, as you might be able to see in camera shot there. There is, just there alone, there's probably 5, 6, and this goes on for a very, very long way. So we're talking probably 400 or 500 of these things just laying around. So I'm trying to gather them up into a big pile, tidy the place up a little bit, but also use a couple of them in the bid to try and leave the place in a better state than I came. That's the idea. So there was about 10 there. I often think of these things as 1 in 10. I expect one of those to live, and that's all you need really, isn't it? If 2 live, I will uproot 1 and move it somewhere else, and so on, because 1 is all you need in this little spot here where there's a clearing. Not much of a clearing, but enough to get a little hazel in there. That will then go on to create a crown of lots of hazel poles, so that will more than cover those 12 poles that I've used, which, yeah. So this week's joss stick was I was quite excited about. It's the Vampire's Kiss. Sounds a little bit seductive, doesn't it? Well, turns out I had a very good night's sleep. So maybe I did get kissed by some vampire or something and knocked me out. But if it was a kiss, it was a kiss missed. And if it's a kiss missed, I shall not reminisce. But that said, it's quite a fragrant little number. Very feminine, I think, perfumey, but with a bit of musk. So, altogether, quite pleasant. Couldn't have too much of it. I think that would make me sick. Probably much like if I was to actually kiss a vampire, I don't know. But yeah, that's going to be number 3 on the list in my charts of Joss sticks. Stay tuned for more riveting Joss stick reviews. Yeah. So there we have the woodpecker tapping away on the birch, which is its favourite place to make a home. And why not? It's antiseptic, nice clean white wood home. I think they sound a little bit like a pneumatic drill or Predator. I think they used the noise of the woodpecker for the Predator films. I'm pretty sure they did, because it sounds just like it.